Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing how to utilize statistics to promote your downtown and the work you're accomplishing in your downtowns. Today with us, we have our Executive Director, Matt Wiederhold, and our Assistant Director of Revitalization, Lorna Swisher. Before we get started, I just want to go over a couple quick housekeeping items with everyone. First off, if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into your chat box. We will answer questions at the end of the webinar, but please type them in as you have them and we'll get them answered accordingly. Also, if you have any issues with your webinar, like slides aren't moving, it seems like sounds are getting a little weird, just please go ahead and close down the webinar and re-click the link that was sent to you. And likewise, if you're on the telephone, same kind of deal. Just call back in and that should solve 99% of your problems. So without further ado, I will turn things over to Matt and Lorna. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Devin. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Monthly reporting seems to be the bane of existence for Main Street managers, but today we hope to show you how to do the reports, where to find the information, but then more importantly, how to use that information to support your program and to help you get financial support from your local constituents and your municipalities and other donors. So every month, Ohio Main Street programs get a reporting link that is sent out that asks a bunch of questions. So we're going to go through those questions and explain where to find that information so that you don't have any questions about what to do. What you have on the screen is the cumulative data from Ohio Main Street programs from 1998 to 2023. How I sometimes explain Heritage Ohio and the Main Street program relationship to others, especially when I'm applying for funding for the programs, we see Heritage Ohio as the teacher or the educator, and the Main Street programs are the students. So what we do, like a teacher, is they take your test scores to show the value of their work. We take your data to show the value of the work being done across the state. And this is what we use to approach funders to try and get more financial support for the Ohio Main Street program. So jumping into the reporting. But before we do that, I want to say two things. I realize doing the reporting is kind of like doing your homework and you hate doing it, but at the end of the day, we're going to show you why it's important. Also, give us your best guess on your reporting. If you don't have something to the exact dollar figure, or if you miss a volunteer hour or two, it's okay. The world is going to keep turning and the sun will come up tomorrow. Completed facade renovations, public investment, private investment. So this is when the exterior of a building is renovated. It's usually just the front of the building, but sometimes it can be a side renovation as well, particularly if it's a corner building or a standalone building. No matter how big the building is, the number of storefronts, if it's one whole building that gets a facade improvement, that counts as one project. Francis also says that you can include signage as a facade improvement. So if one of your businesses gets a new sign, count that as one facade improvement as well. Public investment. Were there any public funds that went into the project, such as did the municipality help fund a revolving loan program or a grant program for facade renovations? If so, that's the dollar amount that you would put there. Private investment. This is what the building owner or the business owner spent on that renovation. Sometimes people don't want to share their expenses or their dollar figures, but tell them it's just for reporting. Nobody's going to see it. You just are trying to show the value of it. Building rehab projects. This is when an entire building is renovated, usually inside and out. So not just the facade, but think of a vacant building that perhaps gets a tax credit allocation or has an investor do a complete rehab. Again, no matter how big the building is, the number of units, it counts as one rehab project. If it's a two-story commercial building with an apartment upstairs and a storefront on the first floor, or if it's a 12-story downtown building with offices and apartments, it still counts as one building rehab. Same thing with public and private investment. Were there any municipal dollars or county dollars or state dollars put into the project? If so, that's where you would account for that. Private investment. What did the developer or that owner spend personally on rehabbing that building? New construction. This is when a new structure is built in your district. It's not a rehab of a building. It's not a gut rehab or facade program. This is new construction. No matter the size or the scope, count it as one. Important note on this one. This is for commercial use, not residential. Residential is a separate question. If it's a mixed use building, count new construction as one for commercial. When you get to the residential question, count each residential unit as a separate entity. So if it's a 3-story building, brand new, one commercial space on the first floor, 16 apartments upstairs, it would count as one new construction, but then 16 residential units. Public investment, private investment, same thing as the previous 2 slides. Any non-owner money that went into it is public investment, and any owner investment is private investment.
And I also would want to point out, Matt, in that situation, very often you can find new construction projects in your county building department, as when they pull the permit, they have to give an approximate cost of the project. And that's one way to glean the amount of money that is going to be spent on these projects.
Great point. Another good contact for getting this information is if you have an economic development, a community development person on staff for your village or city, they can very often give you those numbers. Number of buildings sold. Generally, you would know if a building is for sale by seeing a sign in the window, but sometimes a private sale happens. So sometimes you can ask your county auditor to pull this list for you. Sometimes your local newspaper prints property transfers. We don't care about the price of the building. All we want to know is how many buildings were sold. So you would enter if 2 buildings were sold, you put down 2. Again, it doesn't matter the size of the building. It's just literally the number of buildings sold. Public improvements completed. This is if something in your municipality is redone, such as they do a streetscape program, or they put in new streetlights or new sidewalks. If it's a comprehensive streetscape program that includes sidewalks, lights, trees, crosswalks, curbs, count that as one. And then for the public investment, again, how much money was spent on that from non-private donors. If your community just puts in brand new streetlights, count that as one project. This is showing the investment that's taking place within your district. New housing units completed. This is when new apartments or houses are built in your downtown. Many times this is upper floor development. And I think we also decided, Lorna, if a building is rehabbed and upper floors are turned into residential, that counts as well for new housing, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so you would count each dwelling unit as one unit. So a conversion to 10 apartments counts as 10 units. Public investment, private investment, I think we know how to get those answers by now. New businesses opened. This is a big hooray for your community. Hopefully you are walking your district and have an eye on what's going on in the municipality in your district, and you know when a new business opens. You can also get this information from your city. Businesses have to apply for certain permits to open a new business. So if it's one business that opens, that's what you count. If it's a co-op type space, if it's like an antique mall that has different booths in there, you would still count that as one business. Full-time employees and part-time employees added. Simply ask the owner for this number. They should be very proud of their new business, and they should be willing to give you this information. If not, go in the store a few times and take your best guess. Number of businesses expanded. If one of your businesses is doing well and they need to grow and they take on a larger space, relocate to a larger space, that counts as one business expansion. Same thing with full-time and part-time employees. Ask the owner if they added any additional employees due to the expansion. Hopefully the answer is yes, but not always. Number of businesses downsized. This is when a business scales back. Perhaps they cut their space or move to a smaller space. Doesn't necessarily mean the business isn't doing well. It could be that they're moving to an online platform or they're doing things more efficiently and they just don't need as much space as they previously had. So for each business that downsizes, you count that as one. Full-time and part-time employees lost. Ask the owner how many positions they had to cut. Number of businesses closed or moved out of your district. This is always a sad day, but it's a reality of business world. If a business closes, you put that as one business closed. If they move out of your district, you still put that as one lost from the district. Again, statistics that you're keeping are all about your Main Street footprint. It's not about the entire city unless that's your footprint. If somebody moves from your district, essentially that's a business lost. And then sadly, you'll need to talk to the owner or take your best guess about how many jobs were lost, and you would enter those figures in that part of the survey. Downtown promotions and events completed. We all love doing big events in our district because it showcases the businesses and it brings people to the community. This is where you want to count how many events you did. If you have a farmer's market every Saturday of the month, generally that's going to be 4 farmers markets, so you would count each one individually, not one farmer's market, but 4. Your first Fridays, each one would count as one. Special events, each count as one. We also, I believe, said that if you send a press release out or you do a brochure, count that as a promotion because you're also marketing your district. Number of training sessions attended. We strongly believe in continuing education for Main Street managers and volunteers and board members. So professional training can be the Main Street America Conference, the National Trust for Historic Preservation Conference, our annual conference, the quarterly workshops that we have, the webinars such as this, tax credit workshops. Anything that is presented in association with Main Street America, the Trust, or Heritage Ohio counts as training and professional education. For each session, count that as one. A one-day workshop or a 3-day conference each counts as one session. Number of persons trained. Simply count the number of people that attended that training. If we have a 3-day seminar, it's one training, but if you have 7 people that attended, that counts as 7. Tell us more. Volunteer hours. This is a very powerful number, and you're going to see why shortly here. This is a best guess. We don't expect you to be down to the absolute minute on this, but it's simply a guess of how much time are unpaid volunteers spending to support your program. If you have a monthly board meeting and you have 12 board members and your board meeting is an hour long, that's 12 volunteer hours. You can ask your volunteers to self-report how much time they spend at home working on an event or even in their store. A solid guess is fine on this one. In-kind donations. Again, this is people giving you things to support your program that has an expense perhaps to them, but not to you. So if you get something like free rent or free utilities, free copies, assistance from the city with event setup, those are all in-kind donations, and that value adds up very quickly. Side note for that, even though it's in-kind, I would still recommend that you show this in your budget so that if it never is in-kind or if it's not in-kind going forward, you've at least allocated for that expense and it wouldn't come for a surprise. New members. Hopefully you're getting great support from your community and people are giving you financial support as well. So every month you want to tell us the number of new members. You should track this internally so that you can engage them and thank them for the work that they're doing to help you. So that's simply a number that you put in there. And it doesn't matter if it's family, personal, business, corporation, each counts as one new member. If a business has 10 employees, that's not 10 new members unless they all joined individually. Annual budget. We want to know your year-end expenses. What does it cost for your program to exist? Total number of downtown housing units. This is your best guess of how many housing units are in your town, whether it's new construction, a rehab building, a loft, a single-family house, apartment buildings. Count each unit as one. Total number of first-floor commercial spaces. count every space as one. If it was rehabbed into like a mall or subdivided into commercial, count each business. Unless it's something like an antique mall where it's an open space with booths, count that as one. If you need clarity on that, you can always reach out to us and say, how do I account for this? Number of first floor vacant spaces. We want the number of vacant space, not the square footage of vacant space. This should be fairly obvious. As you're walking through your district and you see a dark storefront, likely that's a vacant commercial space. Average annual commercial rent per square foot. There are a lot of variables that go into this number. The easiest way to get it is to ask a commercial realtor for your downtown, what's the average going rate in the community? You can also sometimes find this on commercial realty sites such as LoopNet or PropertyShark.com. All right, so what do you do with all this? Every month, we're begging you to give us numbers. Lorna, Francis, Devin are on you to get your reports done. Here's why that's important. And for me, here's where it starts to get fun. So what we do then is we take those statistics, or you take your statistics, and you show the value of your program. If you don't keep statistics like this, you can't quantify the work that you're doing. What we wanted to do is come up with a pretty simple template where it's almost a plug and play, where you get your results at the end of the month or the end of the year, plug them into a spreadsheet, switch that over to a pretty page, and you have a wonderful report to use. So this is a spreadsheet that we'll send out after the webinar. This is something that Lorna put together, and these are just things that you either take from your website, or hopefully you know your organization and mission by heart, and you can just type this in. So you put all this information in. Community statistics. You can get this through Wikipedia, you can get it from census data, or you can ask your city. Number of member businesses, you put that in there. Private donations, these would be like your family or non-business members. Grant funds, how many dollars have you raised through grants throughout the year? Number of events, how many special events did you hold? Again, that can include all your farmers markets, ladies' nights, all of that goes there. Volunteer hours, this is the sum total at the end of the year of how much time was donated through volunteerism to your program. Look at that number, that next number, $29.95 is the value of a volunteer hour. That's an incredibly powerful number that shows people are willing to give $30 of their time to help support your program. Estimated event attendance. Do your best guess on this. Sometimes your fire chief can help you, give you a good estimate, or your police chief, or you can take photos throughout the day and just kind of guess. You can also ask your businesses for their thoughts on event attendance. Most business owners are pretty savvy and have an idea of how many people are coming through the business. Value of event attendees. This is an interesting number. If you Google this, it generally says the value of a day visitor is about $120 per person. We felt that was a little high, especially like if it's a family of 4. So we're taking a low guess of $20 per person. So if a family of 4 comes to your community for an event, they're probably going to go to lunch, they're probably going to spend some money in your downtown, and they're probably going to spend money at your event. So $20 a head is what we estimate. Number of Facebook followers. You go to your page and you look up followers and you put that number there. Instagram, if you have it, do the same thing. Website visitors, you plug that number in there. Number of buildings rehabbed. These will come from your cumulative report at the end of the year, and it's literally a copy and paste. We also had an intern a while ago pull census data from 2010 and 2020. What we wanted to do was show that communities with a Main Street program were developing further and having greater reinvestment than those without. So those numbers are in a spreadsheet that we can provide to you, or you can simply Google census data for your community and pull that on your own. So this was the quick and dirty sheet that Lorna put together to give an overview of what is happening in your community. So all of a sudden you're starting to see this with reinvestment statistics, you're building community, the economic impact, and then your community profile. Let's look at that economic impact for a second. So in Piqua, Lorna estimated that in 2023, at the 32 events that they hosted, they had about 26,000 people attend. When you multiply that by $20 a person, and that's the number that we said they spend probably on an average person per person when they visit your town, all of a sudden that's over $500,000 of economic impact that likely would not have taken place without your Main Street program. That's a huge number that is very important to elected officials and businesses when you show them the value of what you're doing to bring people to your community to spend money. So with that, we came up with a template, and we'll send this out. What we wanted to do is have this somewhat branded to Main Street America and Heritage Ohio, so that we, as the teacher, can take you, our students, and show their test scores and go to our grantors or grantees and our elected officials and show the value of the work that you're doing. So this form is something that you can modify as you need. If you don't have all the facts and figures, you can just take that part out and include a photo on there. So with this sheet, let's look at Main Street Piqua for a second. The economic impact, $520,000. That's based on the event attendance. 26 events, $20 a person gets us that number. 15 net new full-time jobs. That's an impressive number. 19 net new part-time jobs. You're showing reinvestment in your community. You're showing that businesses want to locate within your district, and you're showing that you're adding jobs, which also adds income tax to your community. New businesses opened, 7 in the past year. It's showing the downtown as a destination and is a good place to do business, and entrepreneurs are recognizing the value of what you're doing. Private rehab investment. Over $100,000 in Piqua was spent on private building rehab. Public investment, $18,000 that was invested. I'm really not great at ratios, but when you do the reinvestment statistics and compare those numbers, it's impressive. Downtown vacancy rate is only 11%. That's not bad. Average rent per square foot is $7. On a national average, that's a little low, but it's showing that it's an affordable place to open a business. 26,000 people at special events. When we went through list by list, we found that Lorna underestimated the number of attendees. So if you fudge that number a little bit and get as close as you can, that's fine. Special events hosted, they did 32, 4 facade improvements. Some communities have a lot of investment going on in their downtown, and some don't have as much, but you're still improving buildings, and that's what's important. Volunteer hours donated. That's that big number that we multiply by the $29.95, and if you jump down, the value of volunteer hours, $29,471. Essentially, you can look at that number as unpaid staff. Those are things that you, as the program director, didn't have to do. Someone else did it for you, and there's value to that, and you need to include that. The community profile, 20,354 residents in 2020. That is up, I believe, from 2010. So we want to show that people are moving to your community because they see it desirable. Median family income, household income increase. Across the board, Main Street communities saw a household income increase from 2010 to 2020. In Piqua, it was almost 10%. Median home value, median average age. And then we want to show who's supporting your business. So 67 member businesses for Piqua, private individuals, 31,000, grant dollars, 22,000, and then that social media. We did this real quick for downtown Middletown as well. Beautiful community that we were just in last week for a training. Some of these numbers we didn't have. So we took off that which we didn't have and dropped in pictures. Again, you can customize this for your community, but what you want to show is the outcomes of the work that you're doing. I guess I should have gone to this because it's a little easier to read, but it gives you a good idea. At the top of each page, you drop in your logo, drop in your mission or your vision so that this is customized to you. And then the bottom has the 3 logos on it for Main Street America, Heritage Ohio, Ohio Main Street. And that bar on the right is kind of Heritage Ohio's color code for our marketing materials. You can also take those numbers and do your own reinvestment one sheet, which is what Main Street Medina does. It's the same facts and figures that we had on the Picklet and the Middletown sheet, but in a completely different format. We firmly believe with the Ohio Main Street that downtown revitalization is economic development, and that is the message that we have been taking to funders and elected officials, and they are responding and taking a brand new look at the Ohio Main Street program and the work that is being done. Lorna, do you have anything that you want to add before we open up for questions?
I do. So this is a report that is required to be done by Main Street programs. But we strongly encourage startup organizations to consider starting to keep these kind of statistics, because as you grow your value of your organization and are able to communicate that to your elected officials, your county officials, this will help build your story as to why you should be funded in the long term. So these are required statistics for Ohio Main Street program, but strongly encouraged for all the other communities so that they can build their value as well.
Thank you. So this is also, if you're a program that receives no funding from your village, city, or county, you can take this one sheet and go to your elected officials and say, we're bringing in over $500,000 or $1 million or whatever you're doing, we're bringing that to the local economy. Within that, you're getting property tax, sales tax, income tax. If our program goes away because we're not funded, the result is that income also goes away. That's an incredibly powerful and persuasive argument that you can use to either get funding or increase your funding. All right, Devin, let's jump into questions.
Thanks, Matt and Lorna. Before we take any questions, I just want to remind people here, if you have questions, please type them into the chat box. To start off with, for anyone who's asking about will this be shared, this is being recorded right now, so this will be sent out to everyone tomorrow afternoon, as well as any of the attachment documents that Matt was talking about earlier. Matt, so first question here, what are some good strategies for people to kind of use this data and approach municipal officials, whether they're just informing them about what they're doing, if they're seeking funding? What are some good ways they can utilize this information?
Sure. I think the best way is to show the outcomes of your work, and that's, you get those outcomes from your statistics. For the first 2 years with Main Street Medina, the municipality supported the program with $30,000. First 2 years, no questions at all. The third year, there was a change in council with a new council member, and they said, what are you doing with the money? It was at that moment that we thought, we need to show the value of what we're doing. So we're able to run the numbers and say, you're supporting us with $30,000. Because of that, we're able to exist. We bring in over 150,000 people to the community. If you use $20 a head, that's $3 million of economic impact and money coming into the district, not the city, the district. So it's very targeted. I was able to say to that council person and the mayor, you give me 30,000, we return 3 million. We've never had an argument since then about them funding the program.
Thanks, Matt. And so this would be for both Lorna and Matt. What are some additional uses of these statistics? Like, have you seen people using these informational pieces for grants, for other types of funding they've been seeking?
Absolutely. I think that in addition to a year-end statistics, we have one program that's using it as an opportunity to inform their council on a quarterly basis on the activities that are going on in the downtown. More and more, there are communities that are requiring contracts with their Main Street program that have some reporting requirements in there. So this can certainly meet that need as well. And I do think that even as you speak to businesses in your downtown, as well as those corporate supporters that are outside of the district area, nothing says that they're going to be happier than with you than when they see these kind of statistics, especially when you can say you had, in the case of the Pickwa report, over $500,000 brought into the downtown because of the 32 events that are done each year. And in addition to that, you can use it for sponsorship sales to say, if you support these events, these are the kind of numbers of people that we're bringing in. So lots of different layers on the ways you can use the statistics.
Thanks, Lorna. Don't see any more questions. Give people a few seconds here to type those in. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we'd like to thank the Ohio Department of Development for, in part, funding these webinars. They're a great partner, and we love working with them around the state. Matt, Lorna, do you have any final comments before we sign off?
I do have one thing. Early on in the presentation, when we were talking about the reinvestment statistics, specifically the private investment, and then also jobs created and jobs lost. One of the things that we talk to the Main Street managers statewide about is building relationships with your building and property owners so that they will be comfortable with you in sharing these statistics. Of course, it's much more difficult if you walk into somebody and ask them, how much did you spend on your building, when that's the first time they've ever met you. So it really is all about building those relationships so that people feel comfortable and confident when they share this information with you. It's also important to tell them that it is not a reinvestment that is specifically attributed to their building. It's a cumulative number for the entire district.
Good point, Lorna.
Yeah. We have nothing more to add. Just please keep doing good work and give us those numbers so that we can keep working together and help you do even more better work than what you're already doing.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for attending today. Look out for your May 1st email from me. That'll have the link for Main Street managers for their next filing. So without any more questions, I think that's it for today. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.